Hello and welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. So glad to have you with us. As the No Kings protest took place, Kurt Cignetti continues to hold court in Indiana, Mike Locksley might not do so at Maryland, and James Franklin became to Penn State a court jester, albeit a very rich one at that. Oh, I guess you can now add Brian Kelly, formerly of LSU, to that list. I will, in a few seconds, preside over the court of Fit to Speak on NBC's triumphant, and I mean triumphant, return to the basketball court, and as we continue to seek answers 7 years later as to the disappearance of broadcast media professional Terrence Woods, I speak by phone to his former graduate school classmate Diana Hidalgo. Plus, you will hear what Raw TV, where Terrence previously worked, did or perhaps didn't say in response to my questions. Oh yes, that intro, the lasers, John Tesh's Round Ball Rock, that all hit me in the nostalgia feels. I watched the return of the NBA on NBC, and I'll tell you, I'm not typically a purveyor of the NBA as such. I'm usually more about the college game. It would also help if the Washington Wizards were actually a winning team. But based on what I've seen of NBC's presentation, I'll tell you, you have to start becoming a regular viewer of the league. I mean, it was very big. It was grand. It was epic. Very Sunday night football, I dare say. Very Brady-esque. By contrast, the next night on ESPN, Belichick at UNC. The more I thought about why I haven't watched the NBA with any degree of regularity in the 23 years since the NBA on NBC went off the air, the more I realized that in that time span, none of the broadcasters really captured that zeitgeist of what makes the NBA. And I think really a lot of American sports great. And that is the immersive experience. It really does. It really does make a difference. Maybe except for TNT, you could let me know in the comments, particularly inside the NBA, which now ESPN is licensing. Now, admittedly, I am a bit of a newbie to inside the NBA, but I can see why, from watching it last week on ESPN, I can see why this was very, very appealing. I mean, who knew that this would make it on ESPN's airwaves?
And listen, I told y'all, it's an honor to work for ESPN. They're not gonna work me like a dog.
You played at Auburn. Y'all wasn't on ESPN back then. North Carolina is over there.
There you go. Hey, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. One thing I ain't gonna be is Stephen A. Smith everywhere.
Okay, you keep marketing. Why? I guarantee, hey, Shaq, I guarantee he'll be on some ESPN show tomorrow. I guarantee it. There's no way he will not be on something tomorrow.
Are you already booked for a show on ESPN tomorrow?
Yes, you are. We're here tomorrow. See,
I saw you on ESPN today.
Yeah, you were on this morning.
Talk about kissing ass.
hey, listen.
Does it taste like chicken?
No, we talking about. Wait,
oh, now we sponsored by Popeye.
There you go. Does it taste like chicken?
Fried chicken sounds very, very, very appealing right about now. No, but seriously though, I have to say, going back to NBC for a bit, credit to them for coming out swinging. They really came out swinging on this. They really made a statement here. You gotta have the juice, at least more juice than what the modern USFL did when that was a thing. You can't have the loud complaints that you had that were published from awful announcing about the NBA Finals last season, stating, quote, "This is the third year in a row that ESPN/ABC's presentation has made the finals feel like a Tuesday game in January. No starting lineups were introduced, though after the deafening cries of the public, they were put into the broadcast in Game 5. The start of NBC's Rockets Thunder game did all that and more. NBA on NBC? Slam dunk. Proof's in the pudding. And I believe that this has the potential of bringing along even more people for the ride. And I'm going to fasten my seatbelt. And if I were Disney, I would hope that Adam Silver, commissioner of the NBA, will not renegotiate and decide that the mouse should be fouled out. The Peacock Network put you all on notice, and I think it'd be very wise to listen. You don't have to take it from me. Take it from Charles Barkley, who pretty much said as much on your own air. The less of Stephen A. Smith doing this.
Somebody's palms are going to get sweaty. Backside going to get tight. Somebody. It always happens in a game 7. Now, I don't know who's going to do it, but he acts like everybody that's been producing all year long, come game 7, it's no different. It's no different. It's very, very, very different. And he knows this because he's a champion. And not only that, when they lost in game 7, you were injured. You didn't play. Had you played, you might have beat the Lakers. It's a big deal. It's a game 7.
Not to mention all the tap dancing that he's doing these days. The better. And joining me now is Diana Hidalgo, a friend and former classmate of Terrence Woods at Richmond, the American International University in London. Diana, welcome to the show. It is great to have you on our program. And
thank you, Eugene, for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. This is really, really important, this show, because we really want to provide our audience the real understanding of Terrence as a person. And you were in grad school with him. You know,
Yeah.
many people do not know that Terrence was a graduate student. He earned his master's degree in international relations after his undergrad at the University of Maryland. So tell us about your experience, please, with Terrence during your time in grad school. What was he like?
Yeah, I think you've seen this echoed across different news articles, maybe from other people that you've interviewed, but Terrence was just all around a stellar guy. I mean, um, he could definitely brighten up a room if he wanted to. You know, he was definitely like life of the party if we were going out, dancing or just grabbing some pints. But he was also, I think, what most left an impression on me is he was just so warm and caring and accepting and open to everyone and everybody. When I went into grad school, I'd always been very studious, very kind of nose in the books type of person. And when I was abroad, I was wondering how I would fit in with others. It wasn't that I wasn't, like friendly or anything like that, but I was just more academically oriented. And Terrence just did not care at all. He took an interest, a genuine interest in everyone. And I think that's really rare. And I love that sort of fresh perspective. And it honestly left a huge mark in the way that I deal with people nowadays. I take the Terrence approach. That's sort of what I call it mentally. But I'm just open and inviting to everyone, trying to make sure everyone feels welcome. And that's exactly how he made you feel. He was just such a loving, kind person.
Yeah, and I really like what you just said here now about how he made you feel, because I think at the end of the day, in terms of sort of the human condition, right? It's not so much really whatever work that we do, right? In terms of, okay, jobs or careers. And, I'll just say, obviously, Terrence, is a very, very accomplished person.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's really that how we relate to people that I think is so important. And I'm so glad that you touched on that. And you talk about being very studious,
Mm,
and all,
yeah.
but being, nose in the books, that sort of
Yeah.
thing. And, with grad school, now I've only done undergrad, but, I've had so many people, including family, that have done graduate studies, and it's intense. It is very, very intense.
Hmm.
And,
Absolutely.
oh yeah. And it's just one of those things where it's like, the fact that he furthered his education, Terrence, the fact that he furthered his education, he was the first in his family to graduate from college.
Yeah.
So to see that happen is just so good. And then also, as I touched on, you can imagine the stress sometimes, in graduate school, the intensity of it, that sort of thing. There was talk in a lot of the reports that have been bandied about in the media about Terrence that, oh, there were some mental health things, things of that nature during the time of his disappearance or whatever. Um, from your experience, did you sense anything pertaining to any challenges that he may or may not have had? I mean, what do you think about some of that reporting? Was he somebody that was open?
Yeah, so this was back in 2013, 2014 when we were at school, and this is when I, met Terrence. And from my personal experience, I can only tell you that my perception of Terrence is that he was just a very open-minded person. He would be willing to share things with other students, but he was definitely closer to other of the students in our class. So I mean, maybe he was willing to share more intimate things about himself with them, but with me, it was about sharing experiences. I mean, we got to tour museums together. He loved photography and videoing other people, and so in the moments that I saw him photograph or capture video of his time, he seemed to really relish that. And so I really can't comment as to his mental health, but the reason I bring all of this up is just to say that he seemed to be balanced and really have, like I said, a genuine interest in getting to know others and their emotions and their feelings. And so um, I really can only tell you that he was just such a wonderful guy. Um, and I personally didn't suspect anything of that nature. Um,
So
yeah,
nothing
he was just,
untoward, you're right. Nothing that would be untoward or anything that would raise any red flag. He was just somebody who was very genuine, very open, right?
yeah, I mean, I've tried different ways to formulate just to try to get across, and do justice to him about how genuinely kind and charming and fun, and loving he is. I mean, he really was such a great friend. Like I said, he really changed me, I think, for the better, because like I said, I definitely took inspiration from how he deals with people and made that a part of me because as you mentioned earlier, it's all about how people make you feel in the end. And he was just always so welcoming to others. He easily made friends with everyone. So I just have to say that he always seemed to me like he was doing well. Of course, grad school makes us all get a little bit sleep deprived at some points. Sometimes we have to go in reading, many journals and articles and books and here and there. But aside from that level of stress, as we got near turning in our final thesis, etc., he always seemed to be carefree and easygoing and fun and loving. And that's what I most remember about Terrence, and nothing untoward ever.
Yeah. Oh, that is definitely very, 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 very good indeed. And look, to have spent the time in grad school with Terrence, and all. And, this was, as you said, 2013 to 2015, that sort of thing.
Mm,
To finding out years later that he is missing,
yeah.
like, what was your reaction to that? What went through your mind?
Well, I can tell you that just as much as he left a mark on me personally because he was just such an amazing person, I remember that day vividly. I found out a couple months after it happened. I was at work, and I genuinely don't know if it was because I logged on and a mutual friend had shared something on their social media, or if perhaps there was some kind of like, local news that was shared on my social media to me. But as soon as I saw his face and I saw the story, I couldn't believe it. I was just in absolute shock. Um, I started getting very emotional. I mean, honestly, thinking about it now, it's still really hard because just the few details that I started reading and the story and the other bits and pieces I could put together. it was just not fair to Terrence at all. I mean, he does not deserve how he was treated, and I just got extremely sad. I went ahead and reached out to mutual grad school friends just to corroborate and see if they had any other information. I remember at the time we were trying to put funds together to send to his family for the private investigations. I reached out to some of our grad school professors too to see if they were aware because I was just so aghast. Honestly, I couldn't believe it, and when I saw it, I thought back to the many, many times that I told Terrence that I would not be surprised at all if I ever saw him on TV. I mean, he had just such charisma, such charm, such warmth, and I was sure he would be famous. And seeing him, all over the internet, it was not the way that I ever envisioned that being for him, and it just absolutely crushed me, honestly. It crushed me so much.
Yeah. And you talk about like how he was treated. Uh, do you have any fig on that? Because there was some reporting from some of the trade publications and some of the stuff here stateside that you remember that Terrence he freelanced for Raw TV,
Mhm.
and one of the things that was mentioned in one of the papers was that Raw, they had kind of sort of a allegedly, they kind of sort of had a laddie culture, kind of sort of a broy type thing, for lack of a better term, that apparently they were not exactly welcoming to outsiders. Now, of course, in the same article, Raw TV, they denied this, but I can't help but think about what you just said now about the treatment
Yeah.
of. Do you have any insight on that, or anything that you've read
Yeah.
or even come across that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've kept up with the story over the years, because and I think, I speak maybe I shouldn't speak on behalf of everyone, but I think it's fair to say that many of his friends and family would likely feel that they're left with wanting answers, right? There's still a lot that seems to be missing. Um, and the story has been woven in such different ways throughout different media platforms with, tidbits of a detail here and tidbits of a detail here. But what I think seems to come across a lot is that there was just not a lot of closeness among the team that he was with. And what recall a lot from the sources I've read is that there may have been staff or members on the team who noticed that maybe Terrence wasn't being himself. Um, and what that seems to tell me is, I was thinking about what would Terrence do if he saw anyone, within the class not feeling well. And he was just such a kind person, as I've mentioned so many times, and I can't stress that enough, that he would absolutely come to you and see what he could do to cheer you up or to commiserate or to just make sure that you're feeling understood. And so I just feel like there was a lack of care, of genuine care for him in the way that they handled that. I mean, I don't think I read anything about anyone asking if he was all right or if they could maybe get his family to come over to help out. I mean, there just seemed to be not a very human approach to the way that it was dealt with. I mean, it just seems like a very cold response. And that's what I can't wrap my mind around because knowing Terrence, you just, like I said, you immediately become friendly with him. And um, he is just such a great guy that if something was off and somebody noticed it, I mean, it would be an immediate, something that you immediately notice and that you would naturally want to help him with because he was just amazing. And so I wish that there was, a better way of dealing with those reports of if there's any truth. Like I said, and that's all I can cling to, right? Is the little tidbits that we read about. And so
Mhm,
again, if they're true and they seem to be reported in several sources, so I think there's validity to that. That there
mhm.
had just been a more warm and human approach to the way that the members of that team dealt with him because he
Yeah,
deserved so much care and just so much better from them.
I think that there is a responsibility, Diana, that when you think about being on at work or on the film set or
Yeah.
wherever it is there may be. Now, as you said, you and I, we have just what has been reported, and all.
Yeah.
And, there's questions as to the veracity of what has been out there at this point. But
Yeah.
one of the things that is certainly not in dispute is that the minimum, when you're at work, when you're on a set, whatever the case may be, there is a duty of care.
Yeah.
There is a responsibility for an employer or an agent of an employer to care for the welfare of the people that are within that employ and all. And again, it's just, when I look at this as well, I, it's tough because I have a lot of real questions
Yeah.
as well as to whether or not Raw TV and really the producer that was on set the day that Terrence disappeared, Simon G. I have real questions as to whether or not they really had that duty of care. And again, I just want to be clear to our audience that I'm not here to accuse anybody of any wrongdoing or anything like that.
Mm.
But at a minimum, there has to be that level of responsibility, and all. Because as you said, Diana, Terrence, and in the few times that I have interacted with him when he was a student at Maryland, he just seemed to be truly somebody who was a go-getter, you
Yeah.
know? Somebody very motivated, somebody who really was just genuine.
Yeah.
And to have people, and again, we don't know this for sure, but for anybody to do him dirty, for lack of a better term, at all, in terms of treatment, it is just, you know, it's just outrageous.
Yeah.
Um, and it's something that we're going to continue to look at, in terms of some of this stuff, because there is an independent investigation that is going on with this. Mehul and Joria and Dion Mitchell of the Crime Redefined podcast, they're looking into all of this. Really need the answers here to find out what the situation is.
Yeah.
Um, what do you hope, Diana, happens here in this case? What do you hope? Because now this has been over 70 years,
Yeah.
sadly.
Yeah.
This has been over 70 years since Terrence has been missing.
Yeah.
And, I've talked with Terrence's father so many times
Yeah.
on and off this program. And for him, it's like a cancer.
Yeah.
So, he works for Metro, and all. He works for Metro, and it's like you have to put on, your smiling face and that sort of thing. You're public facing and all. But then when you go back to the home and you see the constant reminders, right, that oh, there's just one less person um in the house, that sort of thing, or he's not around. I mean, it just it's tough. It's tough. So, what do you hope happens here, Diana, in this case? What do you hope happens here?
I think you were already sort of conveying what I meant to convey as well and what I hope happens, but I think it does no justice to Terrence and who he was as a person and what he stood for, to treat his case so in just such a cold manner. I hope that his father, as he seeks more answers, right, with the open investigation, and his family as a whole, that they get more compassion from those they're seeking answers from, and a more human approach to it. Because, as you mentioned, I've also spoken to Terrence's father, and he's told me, many times before about his room, his bedroom being the same as it was, and I can't imagine how difficult it must be to have those constant reminders. And so, if me being a friend to Terrence, for me, it's already so hard to think about him and how I think just awfully the whole treatment of the whole case has been so far. I can't imagine how, you know, horrible it must be for his family to be going through. And so I really do sympathize with them, and that's why I would like to see, a sense of justice in the sense of just being more compassionate towards them, and understanding that they are a grieving family, that they want answers because, you know, nobody really knows what happened, and we just hope that they get some more insight and clarity. Um, and I think that would be the best way to do it. Would be to just again give them those kind of uh, the answers that they're seeking for in a way that's again I keep saying compassionate, but it's just because I feel like that's what's been lacking so far.
That the compassion,
Yeah,
right? Having, because again, we talk about the human condition, the and all, and what has been so important here.
yeah,
Because I'm like the and I agree with you, Diana, that the way that this has been handled, because and I'll just say this candidly, the Idaho County Sheriff's Office, I've reached out to them, in the context of us, covering this case on the program. They haven't gone back to us.
yeah,
They say that this is an active investigation. They say that this is an active investigation. But they really haven't done much of, I mean, there's been some stuff that's been done initially. I don't want to say that they've done zero, but I mean, again, when I take a walk into the shoes of Terrence's father, you
hmm
know,
hmm
I'm like, if this was like my child, I'm not a parent, but it's like if this was my child, I mean, damn it, I would be beating down the door
yeah,
of Idaho County Sheriff's Office and be like, "Hey, what has been going on here?" And it's like, why not? And in talking with Terrence's father, it's almost like, why not close the case? Why not close the case if there's not anything being done really up to this point? Why not close the case? And even in watching America's Most Wanted Missing Persons, I think it was the former sheriff that said that they should close this and let's allow the records of this stuff to be made known so that we really know what's going on. We have to know what's going on. So so Diana, I agree. The compassion, the care of this um has been lacking. And as I said earlier on, I really have some serious questions as to really some of the um, stuff that has been really reported.
yeah,
And again, Terrence was at work. Terrence
yeah,
was at work when this happened. And again, I think that Raw and Simon and all these guys have a lot to answer to, in my opinion. And all. And again, I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but again, what is not up for debate is that Terrence was at work, and when you're at work, you are responsible. The employer is responsible for what happens to
yeah,
everybody that's employed. It would be no different from anybody coming to Common Sense Entertainment, at all, and saying, "Hey, if something happened to any of my crew, then it's like, okay, they would look, to us, to me, really, and be like, hey, whoa, what happened here? What's going on?"
yeah.
So any as we wrap this up, Diana, any final thoughts as it pertains to um what has been happening over these last 7 years? Any last words for our audience that they should take away about Terrence. I think you really mentioned so much.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh,
there's so much you could say about Terrence. I could go on and give you details about how thoughtful he was, how, like I said, how much of a genuine person he was. Um, I have fond memories of us going out on Halloween, in London, and all of us dressing up and going out to a nightclub and dancing. I mean, it was all in good fun. Um, and so even though friends and families are left with a lot of questions about his disappearance, I carry a little bit of him with me, and I think I would like to say that some of my other classmates that I've spoken to also remember him fondly and think about him and probably carry pieces of the relationship they had with him at school as well within them because he just left that much of a mark. So for me, coming up in Thanksgiving actually was another fun memory that we shared together. And he just really loved that we hosted Thanksgiving and were able to bring our international classmates in to celebrate an American tradition. He thought it was fascinating and it was so joyful. And so we drank some Stellas. And so now on Thanksgiving, I try to have at least one Stella with my meal in memory of Terrence because, like I said, he was just such a phenomenal person. Um, and I have very rarely come across people that you just feel like they are just such a kind and gentle soul. You can tell right away what kind of a human being he was, and it is and has been a great loss felt by all of us. Um, and so we remember him fondly, and we're hoping that as years come by, we continue to cherish him in that way. And I'm definitely going to be hoping as well that the family again gets the answers that they're seeking.
the Woods family indeed needs answers in this case. A huge thanks to Diana Hidalgo for joining us on the program today. I invite you to catch up with all of the coverage that we have done of Terrence's case via our playlist right here on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/the CSE channel, link of which we have in the description below. Last week, we reached out to Raw TV to ask about the claims that were reported in Vice regarding the alleged laddie and unwelcoming culture of the company, as told by a former employee, and whether or not the company's denial of the existence of such culture is still their position. We also asked Raw TV if they believe that they, as a production company, or those that act as agents of Raw TV, have a duty of care, a responsibility to care for the welfare of their employees, to have that duty of care for anybody that works for them. And we also asked whether or not that duty of care was exercised in Terrence's case. We did not hear back. I'll tell you, folks, there are some situations in life where silence speaks the loudest. Seemingly, this may be one of those times. Raw TV should be very, very lucky indeed that they're based in the UK, because left to me, FBI Director Kash Patel will be examining them just like he is with the NBA. Again, just my opinion, just one man's opinion. I'm not trying to accuse anybody of anything, but the fact that they cannot answer, that they will not even give us the courtesy of responding to a basic question about whether or not they believe that they have a duty of care. I mean, forget even about the whole culture question that I asked. The basic fundamental question about whether or not they believe that they have a duty of care, that anybody acting even in the capacity of Raw TV has a duty of care to their employees. The fact that they can't answer that basic question, I think that speaks volumes. But again, just my opinion. Finally, Terrence's father, Terrence Woods Sr., recently shared these images with me from Terrence's 24th birthday. Look at that cake, folks. This past Friday, which was the 24th of October, Terrence would be celebrating his 34th. Happy belated birthday, Terrence. We're still going to fight to get the answers so desperately needed. Thank you so much for watching. Listen, there's going to be a lot more where that came from, so you better stay tuned to catch it all. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts for more information, including all of the bonus content that you'll see from today's show. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes. And do check out our Substack page, csemedia.substack.com, to support all of the work that we do here. Until next time, I'm Eugene, and remember, we will not be silenced.